Welcome to another What Is It Wednesday video. On my channel over time, we've documented all aspects related to coal mining, both above ground and under. And the one thing we've seen time and time again is that nasty orange stuff right there, known as AMD, acid mine drainage. We've seen how it pollutes the environment and the havoc it wreaks in water sources. But have you ever wondered, how is this treated? How can they make it better than what it is when it comes up out of the ground? Well, there's something right down here that does just that. And we're gonna learn about it today. So if you're ready, come along with me for my latest What Is It Wednesday video. The area we're coming to you from today is in Luzerne County. We're on the border of Wilkes-Barre and Nanticoke, Pennsylvania, at a site known as the Askam Borehole. This is a public site. You're allowed to come here. They do have information boards. And you can see firsthand the acid mine drainage coming up out of the ground. But you can also learn how it is treated here, and when it leaves these settling ponds, how it's much cleaner and better quality water than what it is coming up out of the ground. Before we find out how this is treated, let's learn more about AMD itself. It says the monster in our midst. Now, we have seen AMD numerous times at various locations. It's really prevalent along the Susquehanna River, especially at the Knox mine disaster site. Also, the Lackawanna River with the Old Forge borehole, and a lot of places down in Schuylkill County as well. This says AMD forms through a chemical reaction between water, oxygen, and sulfur-bearing minerals. Sulfuric acid and dissolved iron results. The iron falling out of solution creates the orange discoloration you see in the stream. Anthracite coal mining was an important industry in the Wyoming Valley. However, after the mines closed, water filled up the underground voids. Underground, the water comes into contact with pyrite and sulfide mineral. When it resurfaces, like at the Askam Borehole, AMD forms. AMD is one of the top 3 water pollutants in Pennsylvania. It elevates acidity, clouds water, and coats streams in a thick slime. This not only makes the water undrinkable, but also destroys habitat and poisons plant and animal life. And just to the left of us here is one of the boreholes. It says, why boreholes? With nowhere to go, excess mine water often flooded local homes and businesses. Boreholes were drilled to fix the problem by relieving water pressure. Looks like this one was installed in 1996, labeled as BH1, Borehole 1. And right down below us here, we can see that water is coming up out of the ground directly from the underground mines. And let me just tell you, it smells just how it looks, like rotten eggs and a nasty odor. So below that borehole is where the water is coming out of. There's a discharge pipe right here. So that water is coming up out of the mines, flowing out right here into this creek bed, which is just upstream from the treatment center. The water does look clear and clean, but as we've learned, it's not. I mean, based on the surrounding environment, you could see what it does. Everything is stained a bright, vibrant, rust color orange. And the water itself is a bit cloudy, and you can still see to the bottom a few feet here, but it's not water I'd voluntarily want to go into. A little bit of green plant life underwater here, surprisingly. But it is nasty smelling, nasty looking. And if you were to get this water on you, it leaves like a film or a slime. It's not pleasant. Upstream a little bit further from that borehole, I found another one. Right over here. This one's at about a 45-degree angle facing upwards. I'm gonna try to get over closer to it. Maybe it'll appear inside a little bit. Really not in a great spot here. I'm standing right on the edge of the ickiness. But we do have this pipe here. And it is coming out horizontally with a little 45-degree bend at the top here. I'm gonna try to get you just a view. Yeah, it's hard to really see anything. The bottom is filled up with like a bunch of sediment. But it looks really neat though. There's like strands of grass or something flowing with the water. And it's a constant source of water because the mines are flooded. They're down below the water table, the mine pool, and there's no pumps pumping them out, so the water has nowhere to go but through these boreholes. And like we learned, if it wasn't for these, a lot of foundations and homes and businesses would be encountering either flooding problems or even subsidence problems. That water there though, that looks pretty bad. Can't even see the bottom. All right, let's get over closer to where the action's taking place and see what's happening to this water. Now, I first learned about this site. I came here to check it out for myself to see if it was actually worthy of making a video. And at the time, this system over here that we're gonna check out was running. It was making a lot of noise. There was some things going on behind the fence there. It's not running currently, which is unfortunate because we're not able to see what's actually happening. We can only learn about it. So fingers crossed, while we're here, it will turn on and we'll be able to actually see what's going on with that contraption. There's even a culvert right here where some AMD is seeping out as well. That's a stone culvert. And also, the rail line used to run through here, DL&W, Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western. I actually found some abandoned bridge abutments down that go over the road. I believe the line, I don't know if it went right here or on the other side, but it went right here through this area. So that may be something we document in the future to find out what's left of it today, but DL&W definitely ran right through this area, as well as some other mine activity nearby as well. See a depth gauge there. Looks like the high normal mark is just over 2 feet. It's down below that now. We haven't had any significant rain in probably about a week or so. But this will never dry up. It will, diminish with the lack of rain, but it'll never dry up though because the water's always coming up from beneath the surface. But the more rain we get, the larger spring thaw we get, the more water pressure underground forces its way upwards. So the device that I was just mentioning is known as the Maelstrom Oxidizer. And it says, "Aren't you glad we're treating AMD?" The Maelstrom Oxidizer is a semi-passive system that relies on oxygen to treat acid mine drainage. Powered by electricity, the unit injects massive amounts of air into the water passing through its chambers, which forces dissolved iron to fall out of suspension or precipitate. The Askam system has 96 air injectors and can treat up to 7,000 gallons of water per minute. And once it passes through there, it heads to the settling pond with multiple chambers. It says after passing through the oxidizer, water exits into a large settling pond where it remains for approximately 20 hours. During that time, the oxidized iron sinks to the bottom of the pond. 3 baffle curtains help to slow the water's flow by channeling it through small holes. This gives more time for the iron to precipitate. And it says because of the lack of oxygen underground, iron in mine water is usually ferrous or in a dissolved state. Above ground, however, oxygen converts iron into ferric or solid form. Aeration boosts this oxygen transfer in AMD contaminated water, encouraging iron fallout. As we come over, everything is heavily covered in the orange rust color. Now these are all those devices that aerate the water. When I was here, everything was like a big, noisy, white, vibrating area. These were all shaking, vibrating, and water is splashing up. That's why everything's covered in orange, and there's a lot of bubbles and obviously aeration. And it did that as it passed through and then heads to those settling ponds with the baffle curtain. So we will walk back there too. There's another information board further back. But really unfortunate, it's not running today. I don't know if the water level is too low or what the reason is, but I thought this would be operating 24/7 because the water is coming out 24/7. But this is a active site. It is monitored. You can see everything is right there. Big electric motors. Oh, I see why it's not running. They have a break in the pipe right there. It's separated. I guess they have them powered off until that's repaired. Oh, that's unfortunate. Well, that answers our question why it's not running. Not sure if you could see, there's actually a bird sitting right out there. I shouldn't say a bird, I don't know, it's larger than a bird. It's maybe a hawk or something. Looks like he's waiting for food, but I don't think he's gonna want anything out of this pond. But I'm also noticing too, right before the second baffle, there's a discoloration where the water's like a greenish, darker color over here, and then right before the baffle, I can see like an outline of like a lighter, more orange color. So you can see those baffles are doing their job, collecting that before it passes through. And I did confirm, this is the old DL&W line. This is more or less an access road now for the Askam site for the workers, but you can see it's a rail bed. It's got the coal material for the base of it, but DL&W came right through here. Like I said, I think in a future time, may document the area down here tracing the DL&W, because there are a few bridge abutments, and who knows what's existing in those non-visible areas. If I'm not mistaken, that is a goose. And you know what? I could say that this is working as intended, because one thing I'm noticing, the lack of smell down here. I don't smell the odor like I smelled up there near the boreholes. Now we're down here of the entrance, I should say exit, of the settling pond. And we'll be able to get a look at that. And there's also another information board down here too, which should tell us a few more details. So this board talks about what I call nature's corn dogs, better known as cattails. Roots of change. Blue is the new orange. Once water reaches the system's outlet, enters a small wetland called a polishing cell. The area is planted with cattails and other water-loving plants which continue to filter and absorb residual iron from the water. This is why you still see orange along the creek bed. Iron precipitates here instead of further downstream or in the Susquehanna River. And it says improved water quality, improved habitat, and improved community. So here we have a literal spillway. See concrete. So like they said, even though it's still orange, it's minimal acidity compared to what it was coming up out of the ground. So it's much more cleaner, healthier water than the source of it. But it does take time to dissolve even further downstream. And there's all the cattails they were talking about. And if you were to drive further down the road, you could follow the water source. It is still orange several hundred yards further down, but the further down you go, the lighter the orange is. So it is working as intended. It's just a slow, long, drawn-out process. But if it wasn't for this, it would just be 100% pure, polluted water coming up out of the ground, going into our water sources and stream beds. And just beyond the sign here, there's a little clear-cut area, and yeah, I noticed this. I wasn't sure what it was at first. Has EPCAMR. It looks like it's another borehole here. And again, probably another monitoring site. They can open it up and do their testing and readings. Water's cloudy, no surprise. And everything is stained orange, but not as prevalent as what we saw. So that is Dundee Road. There is a parking lot up here. You can park your vehicle and walk around and check it out. And where I'm standing is right where the DL&W railroad came through. So a little bit of railroad history and mining history in the same area. But once you're here though, there is a larger information board, which basically explains everything we already talked about and learned about. So I'm not going to read it to you. If you do want to pause and read it for yourself, you are welcome to, but in short, it basically explains what the orange pool of water is that's being treated by an oxidizer, and this is to help heal the Nanticoke Creek watershed. So even if you don't know a lot about this stuff ahead of time, these boards answer a lot of those questions. And from the picture to today, it's not nearly as bright and vibrant and orange as it has been other times. And I've driven by this dozens of times on my way to Nanticoke, and I've always seen the orange water. I knew it was AMD, but I didn't know why it was fenced off. I didn't know it was being treated by an oxidizer. So learning about this, coming here, I not only educated myself, but was able to show you how AMD is treated, at least in one method, with a device that's not operating today due to a torn pipe. But normally it is operating and doing its job to keep the waters much more healthier than where they came from. Now there actually is a Wikipedia page about this site, so I'm going to read a few things off of that, which will maybe help fill in a few additional blanks that you may be wondering about. But it says the Askam Borehole is a major discharge point for AMD located in Hanover Township, Luzerne County, which we know is right by Nanticoke and Wilkes-Barre, near the village of Askam, and is constructed by the Pennsylvania DEP in the early 70s. The borehole was drilled to relieve pressure from rising groundwater in the southeast mine pool, which threatened to flood local basements. One of two primary outlets for this mine pool, alongside the South Wilkes-Barre boreholes, it released between 3,500 and 7,000 US gallons of contaminated water per minute into the Nanticoke Creek watershed. The discharge contained high levels of iron, sulfates, and acidity, with a pH of 3.7 and acidity of 633 parts per million, as reported in the 70s by Operation Scarlift. Studies posing a significant environmental challenge, the borehole with a diameter of 30 inches operated until it collapsed in 2008, after which replacement boreholes and active treatment systems took over the AMD management at the location. Back over here now, just looking at the equipment that powers this site, and I failed to mention before, those are big fans. Those electric motors, which are good sized motors, are powering those big fans. So it rotates, shoots the air through the pipes into those cylinders or actuators, which causes it to aerate the water. I really was hoping they were running today. I didn't anticipate that to happen, but that is just how things go sometimes. With that being said though, I will be back here in about, say, 7 to 9 months. I'm gonna come back and document the stretch of the DL&W that runs right by here. It's only about a mile long. It starts up near, I think, Main Street, and I could follow a section of it there. Then we know parallels Dundee Road, and then crosses over Dundee Road on the other side. So it's about a mile and a half stretch. As far as I know, there's no rails left, but who knows what else could be out there beyond what we can see from the road. So when I do come back for that video, we will revisit this site, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it's running and operating as it should. And that'll give you a full sense as to what this is like if you come here for yourself. Even if I don't get it in action, you can still come here, check it out, take some pictures, make a video if you want. It is a public site. There are areas they have to stay out of, obviously. They are fenced off for a good reason. And you don't want to go in the water, you don't want to touch it, drink it, take samples of it. But it is a pretty fascinating area, knowing that the water itself is coming directly out of the ground due to those boreholes that were drilled right into the mines. And this water source, as far as I'm aware, very rarely ever freezes, not only because the water is constantly moving, but the water is also warmer than usual because it's coming up from beneath the surface. So no matter what time of year you come, you should be able to find this in action, and just be prepared for the smells. The closer you get to the boreholes, the stronger the smell. But it's pretty fascinating to see how this particular area is treating such a polluted water source that is never going to stop anytime soon for future generations. But at least there's methods like this that help keep the environment cleaner, and hopefully that goose realizes there's nothing to eat or drink in here, he should move on somewhere else. But hopefully I answered any questions you did have. Otherwise, you're welcome to do your own research. or by all means, come here for yourself and learn a lot more about AMD treatment than you may have already known. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you in the next video.